Yesterday where we stopped, we had, I was telling you about Mr. Putnam. What do we know about the Putnam family?
They're very wealthy.
They're rich.
They're the
They
richest
own
in
a
the
lot of
neighborhood.
land. They think they are
Gods.
gods, yeah, better than everybody else. They're very entitled. And he really doesn't like Paris too much. However, in this situation, the two of them are actually
Best friends.
on the same side, which is weird. If you look up at the top of page 21, it says his vindictive nature. What does it mean to be vindictive? Vengeful. Like, do you want to be called vindictive? No. People who are vindictive are out to get other people. They like to see other people suffering when they are not suffering. So they're not very nice people. Okay? He has always been vindictive, is what the author is getting to here. So we're going to start on page 21 when Putnam says, it says, at the moment he is intent upon getting Paris, for whom he has only contempt, to move toward the abyss. The abyss meaning witchcraft. Putnam is trying to push Paris into admitting that his daughter is witch. What would that do to Paris? It would destroy his reputation, his livelihood. He would be done. And that's what Putnam is trying to do, to push him over that edge. Go ahead.
Mr. Paris, I have taken your part in all contention here, and I would continue, but I cannot if you hold back in this. There are harmful, vengeful spirits lying on these hands on these children.
But Thomas, you cannot.
And tell Mr. Paris what you have done.
Reverend Paris, I have laid 7 babies unbaptized in the earth. Believe me, sir, you never saw more hardy babies born, and yet each would wither in my arms. The very night of their birth I have spoken nothing, but my heart has clamored intimations. And now this year my Ruth, my only, I see her turning strange. A secret child she has become this year, and shrivels like a sucking moth, where pulling on her life too. And so I thought to send them to you.
Okay. Tituba. So what has happened to the Putnams
Their daughter is missing.
before that? They had 7 babies who were born looking healthy, but what happened to them?
They died in the night.
They died. Like the very day of their birth, they died. 7 of them. And now her last only living child is also suffering. Ruth, who's back at home, who we haven't met yet, is at home suffering. And so she sent Ruth to Tituba. Okay, go ahead, Paris.
To Tituba? What may Tituba?
Tituba knows how to speak to the dead, Mr. Paris.
Goody Ann, it is a formidable sin to conjure up the dead.
I take it on my soul, but who else may surely tell us what person murdered my baby?
Woman.
Now, what was the purpose of the Putnams sending Ruth to talk to Tituba?
To prove that they were doing witchcraft.
Sort of. What do they want to find out from Tituba?
To see like what happened to her baby.
What happened to her babies? So Mrs. Putnam, the highest ranking woman in the village, sent her daughter to Tituba to speak to the dead for her. Now, in Christian beliefs, is it acceptable to speak to the dead?
No.
Not really. But in the voodoo life that Tituba lives, that's perfectly fine. The dead often speak to people on earth, provide them suggestions and advice on how they can live their lives better. They can see into the future sometimes, so they can protect you from bad things that are coming. But in Christian belief, big no-no. And the highest ranking woman, the meanest, strictest, most stuck-up people in the village did that. And Paris is horrified. Go ahead.
They were murdered, Mr. Paris, and mark this proof. Mark it. Last night my Ruth were ever so close to their little spirits. I know it, sir, for how else is she struck dumb, now except some power of darkness would stop her mouth. It is a marvelous sign, Mr. Paris.
Do I understand, sir? There is a murdering of witch among us, bound to keep herself in the dark.
Paris turns to Betty, a frantic terror rising in him.
Let your enemies make of it what they will. You cannot blink it more.
And so now he turns to Abigail. Who knows at this exact moment, right now, before he speaks, who knows the girls were in the forest last night? Only those two. Nobody else knows. Paris, Abigail. Who else was there? Do we know? Tituba
And Betty.
and Betty. So what we know right now is there were 3 girls, Tituba, Abigail, Betty, in the forest. Probably also Ruth. And Reverend Paris saw them. Okay? Abigail said what were they doing out there? Dancing, just having fun. Okay? So now Paris questions her.
Then you were conjuring spirits last night.
Not I, sir. Tituba and Ruth.
Paris turns now with new fear and goes to Betty, looks down at her, and then looks off into space and says,
Oh, Abigail, what proper payment for my charity? Now I am undone.
You are not undone. Let you hold here. Wait for no one to charge you. Declare it yourself. You have discovered witchcraft.
In my house, Thomas, they will topple me with this. They will make of it a...
and at that moment, Mercy, who is the Putnam servant, enters. She is a fat, sly, merciless girl of 18. So she's kind of going to serve as Abigail's kind of bodyguard, sort of in little kid gangs, there's the leader, and then there's the kid that's you're not gonna mess with her, and that's who Mercy is, okay? Any volunteers? Go ahead. And Mercy, make sure that you can see yourself there, okay? Mercy is the servant girl of the Putnams, okay? Go, Mercy.
Your pardons, I only thought to see how Betty is.
Why are you home? Who's with Ruth?
Her grandma come. She improved a little. I think she give a powerful sneeze before.
There's a sign of life.
I fear no more, Goody Putnam. It were a grand sneeze. Don't look at me. Other like it will shake her wits together, I'm sure.
And now she goes and is staring at Betty.
Will you leave me now, Thomas? I would pray a while alone.
Uncle, you've prayed since midnight. What do you not go down and...
No.
Into Putnam?
I have no answers for that crowd. I'll wait till Mr. Hale arrives.
And to get them to leave,
If you will, Gideon.
who's downstairs? He says, I have no answers for the crowd.
Like a riot.
The townspeople have all gathered at the parsonage to find out what's going on. So a bunch of them are downstairs waiting, and Putnam wants him to go down and give them some peace of mind. Don't just leave them down there asking questions. The longer you let them just talk without knowing what they're talking about, the worse things are going to get. But Paris is not ready to do that yet. Go ahead.
Now look, you sir, let you strike out against the devil, and the village will bless you for it. Come down, speak to them, pray with them. They're thirsting for your word, mister. Surely you'll pray with them.
And Paris is fine.
I'll lead them in a psalm, but let you say nothing of witchcraft yet. I will not discuss it. The cause is yet unknown. I have had enough contention since I came. I want no more.
Mercy, you go home to Ruth. Stand here.
Do you hear?
It
Hey, mama.
And Mrs. Putnam leaves. Paris says to Abigail,
She starts for the window, cry for being up once.
I will, Uncle.
There is a terrible power in her arms today.
and he and Putnam leave.
Yeah, bro.
So, for the first time, the girls are left alone in the room. We'll hold on a second so that we can hear over the nose blowing.
That wasn't mighty freeze.
That wasn't mighty.
That was even better.
Yeah, you eat, Sarah.
Hey.
Okay, so the girls are left alone. So we have Betty passed out, Abigail, and Mercy.
How was Ruth sick?
Where are we at?
How's Ruth sick?
It's weird as I know not. She seems to walk like a dead one since last night.
Abigail turns at once and goes to Betty, and there's fear in her voice. She gets kind of close to her.
Betty.
She doesn't
Gotta
move,
shake
and so
her.
she shakes her.
No, stop this, Betty. Sit up now.
Betty still doesn't move, so Mercy comes over.
Have you tried feeding her? I gave Ruth a good one and she wait for a minute. Here, let me have her.
And Abigail holds Mercy back and says,
If you're upset. No, he'll be coming up. Listen now. If they be questioning us, tell them we danced. I told them as much already.
Hey, and what more?
He knows Tituba conjured Ruth's sisters to come out of the grave.
And what more?
He saw you naked.
So Reese was the naked
so
one.
Mercy was the naked one.
Hey.
And so Mercy claps her hands together and she can't figure out if she's like happy or horrified that someone caught her. Okay? Go ahead, Mercy.
Hold on.
Oh, you say
And Olivia, you're Mary Warren.
Oh, Jesus.
Enter Mary Warren. She is breathless. She's just run here. She is 17,
yeah, run.
a subservient, naive, lonely girl. So Mercy and Mary Warren are like opposites of each other. Mary Warren is sly and merciless, and Mary Warren is very quiet and shy and reserved. And Mary Warren works for the Proctors, which is where Abigail used to work, remember? Okay, go ahead, Mary Warren.
What'll we do? The village is out. I just come from the farm. The whole country's talking witchcraft. They'll be calling us witches, Abby.
Mercy points and points at Mary Warren and says,
She means to tell. I know it.
Abby, we've got to tell. Witchery, hanging like they done in Boston 2 years ago. They must tell the truth, Abby. You'll only be whipped for dancing and the other things.
Oh, we'll be whipped.
like as in, I'm not taking the punishment by myself. We will be whipped. And now, go ahead.
I never done none of it, Abby. I only looked.
And now Mercy, here's Mary Warren trying to talk about her girl, Abigail. So Mercy goes in there and says,
Oh, you're a great one for looking, aren't you, Mary Warren? What a grand peeping courage you have.
on the bed, Betty whimpers, and Abigail goes to her at once.
Betty?
And she goes over.
Now, Betty, dear, wake up now. It's Abigail.
She sits Betty up and furiously shakes her.
I'll beat you, Betty.
And Betty makes a noise.
Mind you seem improving. I talked to your papa and told him everything. So there's nothing to...
And at that moment, Betty jumps up,
Jesus.
scared of Abigail, and flattens herself against the wall.
I want my mama.
Abigail is alarmed, so she cautiously walks to her.
What ails you, Betty? Your mama's dead and buried.
I'll fly to mama. See me fly.
And she raises her arms as if she's gonna fly, and she starts to run to the window, and she actually gets one leg out the window.
I told him everything. He knows now. He knows everything.
tell him that?
Betty, you never say that again. You will never.
You did. You drank a charm of, to kill John Proctor's wife. You drank a charm to kill Goody Proctor.
So now we get another layer of truth about what really happened last night.
Hey, when do I come back into this? I'm trying to.
So, not only were they dancing, not only was someone naked, they were actually making a potion. Tituba made a potion. And what was the purpose of this potion?
Kill Goody Proctor.
To kill Goody Proctor.
Oh, I thought you said kill Goody Proctor.
Okay. Abigail slaps her upside the face so hard she falls back to the bed.
Shut it. Now shut it.
I would have laughed at you.
And Betty cries.
Mama.
And she's just lying there, a total mess. And now Abby is getting upset. So she says,
Now look, you, all of you. We dance and Tituba conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this. Let either of you breathe a word or the edge of the word about other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring pointy red reckoning that will shudder you. And you know I can do it. I saw Indians smash their dear parents' head on the pillow next to mine, and I have seen some reddish work done at night, and I can make you wish you had never seen the sun go down.
she goes to Betty and grabs her again and says,
Now you sit up and stop this.
but Betty collapses in her hands and goes back to lying unmoving on the bed. And now Mary Warren's a little freaked out here,
What's got her?
still staring.
Abby, she's going to die. It's a sin to conjure, and we.
She starts to walk toward her to bring her pointy reckoning.
I said, shut it, Mary Warren.
And just at that moment, John Proctor walks in the door. Okay, so pause for a moment. What does Abigail do there in that little speech?
She's gonna murder.
She's gonna kill
I
everybody.
threatened them.
Not me though, because I was naked.
She threatens them.
I'm standing next to Reese.
She threatens them,
Yeah,
and
wait a
she
minute.
just hold on a
I'm
second.
not into
She
shit.
threatens them and says, if any of you breathe a word or even the edge of a word, I will bring a pointy reckoning down on you. And you know I will, because I saw my parents' heads smashed in by Indians right next to me, and I will do it.
Wow. She
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, you got turn?
I'll take part.
Now,
I should have short socks on.
it says at the bottom of page 26, Proctor was a farmer in his mid-30s. He wasn't really a member of either side of any argument that ever went down in the town, but he was able to talk to both sides equally. And people really respect what he has to say. So even though he's not the most upstanding or wealthy man in the village, people generally have a lot of respect for him. It says, in Proctor's presence, a fool always felt his foolish immediately, because he's a very honest man. It also says at the top of 27, he is a sinner. A sinner not only against the moral fashion of the time, but against his own vision of decent conduct. So he has very high standards for his behavior, and even he has fallen short of those, and most of the guilt that he feels is about his own decisions. Okay? So he is a really good and decent person. When he comes in, Mary Warren is horrified that she has been caught because she's supposed to be at home. Okay, come on in, John Proctor.
Me and Jack switch.
You can't switch.
Sure you can. Wait, well, who is he?
Wait,
Hale.
can I just leave? Because I don't have any
Reverend
comments.
Hale.
We're actually-
Just wait, you're gonna leave in just a moment anyway.
Okay, this is
Okay. So, when he walks in, Mary Warren is terrified.
Jumping fright.
Go ahead, Mary.
Jumping fright.
Oh, I'm
Jump!
just going home, Mr. Proctor.
Be you foolish, Mary Warren? Be you deaf? I forbid you leave the house. Did I not? Why shall I pay you? I am looking for you more often than my cows.
I only come to see the great things in the world.
I'll show you great doing on your horse. One of these days. Now get you home. My wife is waiting with your work.
And she just puts her head high, trying to just maintain a shred of her dignity and says, as she walks out, so you can leave. Now Mercy is, you know, what I told you about her characterization. So she's like, oh, I really want to stay and see what's going on, but also this guy's really scary. So go ahead, Mercy.
Both of it?
I best be
Oh, I best be off. I have my roof to watch. Good morning.
And Mercy slides out. Now, since John Proctor's entrance, Abigail has stood as though on tiptoe, absorbing his presence. Wide-eyed, he glances at her with not much interest, and then goes to look at Betty,